There are no bad Kirby games. A statement you'll probably often come across when talking about the Kirby franchise. What sounds like an arrogant claim from proud followers of the series is more a general reflection of how each entry is commonly perceived. When we say there are no bad Kirby games, we also mean there are no outstanding ones, as Kirby games continually deliver a certain standard and, at worst, are just mediocre. Obviously a cocky proposition to make regarding how this brand features over 30 titles at this point, but once you busy yourself with each of them, you truly understand the message. There are no bad Kirby games. Despite the fact I wholeheartedly support the gist of this statement, there's one exception to the rule. Normally every Kirby game achieves its goal to some extent, be it Aeroid's unique twist on the funracer genre or Dream Buffet's amusing simplicity for in between. You receive what the game promises you. This can also be applied to the handful of remakes, all of them building upon their originals to some extent without feeling unnecessary in consideration how few of them are out there. While people may argue if Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe can be viewed as a full remake, it still upgraded the original tremendously to a point where you could see it as the ultimate version of the origin. One game, however, is frequently either forgotten or simply ignored. Kirby's Epic Yarn can be categorized as a spin-off, but offers just as much, if not more, than many mainline titles. Back in the day, it was a little disregarded thanks to its questionable decision to completely get rid of any difficulty whatsoever. Yet, as years went through, the perception changed, and Epic Yarn is now considered as an insider's tip, especially for young children. Because of that, Nintendo made the decision to port the adorable adventure to the 3DS with some extra features. As such, there seems to be nothing wrong with this choice, since the handheld was profitable and established a wide Kirby player base, with successful entries like Triple Deluxe or Planet Robobot. Why not porting Epic Yarn and giving it another chance, and why is this port especially completely forgotten and maybe even the only bad Kirby game? To understand the situation, it's important to put the release of Extra Epic Yarn into context. By the time of its release, the Nintendo Switch was already nearly 2 years old, and people rightfully ask themselves why this port couldn't come out on the Switch. Having a game with such a distinct art style, it would have been thrilling to see how Kirby's Yarn world would translate into HD after Yoshi showed glimpses of the beauty of that panache. Of course, back in 2019, despite being extremely profitable, the Switch didn't quite reach the same player base, and you could assume it is more clever to safely port Extra Epic Yarn to a console with much less production costs. Theoretically, this makes sense if it weren't for the explicit instances how wrong this thesis ultimately was. Every new 3DS game, be it new, a remake or a port, didn't perform well after the Switch release, and it was clear from the start to stop bringing out potential fan favorites on a handheld no one was ready to play anymore on. WarioWare Gold, Luigi's Mansion for the 3DS, Metroid Samus Returns, and both Mario and Luigi remakes performed underwhelmingly in spite of being quality games. All of the 2017 releases might get a pass because it wasn't reliable to simply assume the Switch would be a success, but developing a title for an outdated console in 2019 was plainly an unwise decision. There are no clear sales numbers, but going by the release week of only selling 20% of the game's initial shipment on launch day, and the horrendous failure Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story suffered from weeks before despite being a full remake, it's safe to assume Epic Yarn's second chance delivered on a same level. Naturally, this isn't too much of a disaster due to the simple fact there probably never were high expectations from Nintendo, only wanting to make the quick money. And going by how this is a port from a proper home console to a portable ancient device, it wouldn't even surprise me if Extra Epic Yarn was profitable at the end nonetheless. Still, we wouldn't be here if this was all to the story, and just how I mentioned, all the forgotten 3DS games delivered even though being unsuccessful. Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn somewhat portrays the exception. Before I go on and be slaughtered on deprecating Epic Yarn, I want to make clear how much of a fan I am of the original for the Wii. Epic Yarn was arguably more hype for me than Return to Dreamland, since it was the first proper home console Kirby platformer in a decade. The unseen visuals left a strong impression on me, and although the gameplay was indisputably different from what you expect, I enjoyed every second until the end. The missing difficulty was never a problem, since this is not what I'm looking for in a Kirby game, and achieving the 100% wasn't a as easy as many people would like to think. You may not like Epic Yarn for what it is, yet it cannot be denied how much passion went into this project and how unique it is, not only within the Kirby cosmos but genre as such. This is why I want to distinguish Epic Yarn as a game and Extra Epic Yarn as a port. The shortcomings of Extra Epic Yarn have nothing to do with what the regular game achieved, and if you regard Extra Epic Yarn as a whole, it is without a doubt one of the best last games the 3DS could have gotten. Ports, remasters or remakes like to overplay their hands with features that either stay in direct contrast to what the original was trying to achieve or simply are unnecessary. A good example of a welcoming new addition are the two new modes, DDD Go 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 and Slash and Beat. Bet. Both of them are extremely short and quick to complete, but are entertaining and give these characters at least another short moment to stand in the spotlight. The reward are more furnitures for your personal home, which is now handled with the touchscreen of the 3DS. Designing your own comfy place with the touchpen is honestly way more intuitive than using the Wii remote and was perfectly translated to the traits of the 3DS. Unfortunately, we would have to miss out on the 3D effect, as many games gave up on that feature years ago. As a fan of the effect, it was not surprising to see, but shameful at the same time. Unlike Yoshi's Woolly World, Epic Yarn has more of a two-dimensional look to it, where it feels like everything is kinda seamed together, unlike in Yoshi, where you get the feeling of wandering in Grandma's sewing box. Having a pleasant looking 3D effect emphasizing the layers could have worked as a substitute for the downgraded graphics, and as it stands right now, Extra Epic Yarn is obviously a visual downgrade from the original. This wouldn't have been a problem if all the other features wouldn't misstep with their massive amount of potential. I'm mainly speaking of the newly added Devilish mode, a harder version of the original with an actual health bar for Kirby this time. The biggest flaw for many players from the original is how they went too far with the accessibility, even taking out the ability to die in the game. Touching an enemy lets you lose gems, but they are only required to the 100% and do not work as life energy. I mentioned how it never really bothered me, but I cannot deny the awkwardness of fighting a boss, knowing I have absolutely nothing to lose because I cannot lose. So after hearing the port would finally add an optional difficulty mode, I thought this could be the ultimate version of Epic Yarn. On paper, there's nothing you could do wrong. Simply give Kirby a health bar and the game is fine. You are able to die and actually have to watch out for enemies and other hurdles. But as it is with many Nintendo games, there must be the famous but. And unfortunately, the Devilish mode is the biggest letdown of this port. Yes, there's now a health bar, but after frequent intervals. A little enemy appears out of nowhere and starts to hunt you with annoying attacks. Think of the angry sun from Mario, but in every level, and there's no way to get completely rid of it. It is possible to beat this nuisance, but he will just reappear after some while, not raising the difficulty of the game, but your willingness to regret putting your hopes into this port. This decision on its own might sound annoying, yet the icing on the cake is a repetitive tune playing whenever the devil appears, destroying the whole atmosphere of whatever situation you're currently in, kinda giving you the impression they did this on purpose. It's just baffling how they crashed with improving on one of the most argued aspects of the original by completely misunderstanding what the game needed. The health bar would have been more than enough since the base game is great, but it seems like the creators thought players wanted a hard challenge when instead everyone just desired for a basic challenge at all. The same misunderstanding can be applied to the equally clumsy implemented power-ups. Most likely you heard about this more than enough, but the whole point of Kirby's Epic Yarn is to take away Kirby's trademark ability of copying the enemy's skills, and instead rely on spontaneous transformations. Everything is designed around that foundation, which is why adding unneeded skills inappropriately makes no sense. They may be entertaining to use, and I cannot fight the fact how pleasing it is to simply equip a sword and slash through every obstacle with ease, yet they still feel like a foreign body objects throughout the game. Sure, it's possible to just avoid them, but it would have been also possible to give you the option of simply turning them off, since weirdly walking around is also no elegant solution. If you look at both of these features, it seems like the team did not wonder at all about the changes and thought just adding something would justify another purchase. The multiplayer is missing and the graphics are worse, yet all of these new ideas don't make up for this. Because there is no second player anymore, Prince Fluff appears from time to time during a level, which is a nice solution to make sure the player doesn't forget about him and integrate him into the adventure without making him unplayable. Small details like these show there was someone thinking about circumventing the downsides of the port. Unluckily, this cannot be said about the rest. Again, I want to emphasize that Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn is no bad game as a whole. Nearly everything you liked about the original is also present in this rendition, and if you're seriously interested in trying out this spin-off, you should clearly go for it. I still consider the original of the Wii the best experience, and my dislike for the port only stems from the missed potential of negating smaller drawbacks. This was the first time I was actively let down by a Kirby game, but you always have to remember that the comfy, enchanting adventure is still there.